Good afternoon. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. My name is Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of my show is Voices Not Yet Heard. And like we say every week, we hope we'll become your voice, perhaps your vehicle, so that you can voice your opinion. A couple of weeks ago I was talking about my political responsibility and how I went about it, how I usually did my due diligence on all the candidates as well as the issues, but that I mostly relied on people who I felt were a lot more politically savvy than I. And the reason I tell you that is because I continue to do that, not so much for myself anymore, except, I want to be informed. I need it for my show, but mainly because of you. If I can help anyone make an informed decision, it's one person at a time in this great country. We have 88 days, ladies and gentlemen, until this country stands up and makes a decision that just might change the course of this whole country. I'm very happy today because I have my good friend Gary Miguel here with me, and I feel so shallow when I say he's a wealth of information, because believe me, it goes way beyond that. Gary, welcome back once again.
Well, nice to be back with you, Ray.
And you have some good stuff. I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and let you talk, for a while. We'll talk. We'll go back and forth there.
We'll go back and forth, yeah. And no, there's been a lot happening in the last 2 weeks.
Boy, has there.
And I feel like it's. I don't know, I just feel a little bit nervous about it. At the same time, there's been progress in the right direction.
Just an underlying excitement about
Yeah.
all this. I tell people all the time, this is such a good time to be alive, because we're a part of this.
Well, yeah.
You don't have to have a radio show to be a part of it. Just being alive makes you a part of it.
Well, as far as a direction, I don't think the country has experienced the kind of direction that's necessary that we're going through right now since the Civil War.
Oh my goodness, that far back, Gary?
Well, I think so. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's been obviously some tremendous events where it could have gone either way, but this is probably.
When I think about it, I agree with you. I agree with you.
As far as everybody being involved, and when it really puts perspective on the Civil War, I sometimes just can't imagine what that must have been like for people on each side.
And it was brother against brother on a lot of occasions.
Right.
Can you imagine?
And what the sacrifices made by the people at that time compared to what has to be sacrificed today as far as discomforts.
Yes.
It's not even close.
No, not at all.
And the same thing with the Revolutionary War. Can you imagine what kind of that must have meant to everyone physically? And there was equal amount of people just about that didn't want to become their own country, wanted to stay under the British rule, so they had to get through that.
Mm-hmm. And that was a long time ago when they weren't sure about if the decisions they were making were the best at the time.
And they just didn't have the comforts we've got today.
No,
and,
we're very fortunate in a lot of ways.
So I think that as far as importance and having the distinction of one thing and the other, it's as great a now as it was then, and as to the direction. And I can't believe, I can, I'm seeing it, the fight that's going on in terms of how, I call it the establishment, uniparty, you call it whatever you want, or the billionaires or Wall Street, and I think the best way to it's hard because it gets confusing. I think just separate and say Wall Street, Main Street.
Okay.
Wall Street represents them, and Main Street is us.
That's, yeah.
Right. And we have a representative, which is obviously Trump, which is representing Main Street, and we have Hillary, which is representing Wall Street.
A part of, yeah.
And the people, I think, have enough distinction, but where it isn't blurry. It's either yay or nay, And but I think that a lot of people need to be responsible enough to really look at what could happen or is happening.
Absolutely. Like I said, we have 88 days, until we make a decision, a major decision.
A major decision, and it's not going to be, it's not going to stay the same.
No, it's not. Regardless of who.
Regardless of who. So if we look at it and say, well, I'm kind of happy the way it is right now, I just kind of let it It's not going to be that
You
way.
you need to ask yourself some questions. I mean, one question that I ask people all the time: are you better off today than you were in 2008 at the beginning of this last administration that Hillary Clinton endorses, by the way? So I look at it like 8 more years of what we now have. Think about that.
Right. And I think that out there right now, which is, again, it's not being, I don't think, publicized near enough, but people owe it to themselves to go see the movie Hillary's America.
We say it every week. You're absolutely right,
And
buddy.
you really do.
Great
It's a history
film.
lesson.
Mhm.
And regardless of whether you're Democrat, Republican, you should at least see that movie.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I saw it the day after it came out. It is fantastic, and like Gary said, it's a history lesson.
And that's something that there's nobody that goes in there and comes out and thought the way it was, that comes out and says, oh my God, I thought I knew something about this.
There was groups forming. I've never seen this outside the theater. There were groups forming talking about this. Of course, I had one of my 11 Trump shirts on, so
Did you?
yeah. So I ended up in one of those groups, and it was interesting. It was really informative. It was wonderful.
Well, I had a friend of mine who I said, you know, you and your wife ought to go see that movie, if nothing else, you know. And he was pretty versed. And he went in there and saw the movie, and he come out and he says, you know, called me on the phone that day, in fact. He says, my God, he says, you was right. He says, I was wrong on so much I couldn't believe it. And that is just kind of brings you up to speed to where now you could talk about it.
Yes.
And really, until you understand what's in that movie and you're talking to someone, you really can't, because you're too far.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's just an information thing that well, if you've seen it, they don't have it. How do you talk about it?
Yeah, you're right. You can't.
You can't, you know. So I think that's a.
It was an eye opener.
It is an
was.
eye opener. I think another thing that I know that opened my eyes in the last week was, you know, we look at where we're heading in socialism,
Oh my goodness. Yes.
and we're heading toward communism, and then progressive, or whatever you want to call it. It's all the same thing in terms of what's the difference, and other than just people putting labels on it.
I can't help but say that when you remove God from the equation, what have you got left?
That's it. And there's so much that people are relying on that they're going to be very disappointed, because we're heading to a future, big scale Venezuela, if we're not careful. And
Oh, awful.
So I thought, I came across this, and I thought I'd go over
Oh, this
this,
is going to be great.
and it's very short, but these
doesn't matter,
are
Gary.
steps, and this is Alinsky. Well, Alinsky was a former confidant or mentor, I guess, for people such as Obama and Hillary Clinton, and he was a devout socialist communist.
Didn't she do a thesis or a dissertation
Well,
about him or
yeah, and
somebody
in fact,
related
I'll
to
just
him?
read this real quick. And okay, he says this is based on, there's 8 steps according to him, and I think we'll recognize all 8 of them. From democracy to a socialist society.
Oh wow, I want to hear this.
Okay, and Alinsky dedicated his book to Lucifer.
Oh my goodness.
And you mentioned God in this.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
I can imagine. Okay, I'm real.
if we go
curious
back
now.
to Russia, when they became communists at their revolution, and you go to China, they all follow these same steps.
No, this
Russia
is-
did, China did, and everybody else that's ever done it, every other country, of course, like Venezuela or so forth. And this is what is kind of scary in a way, but it's also real.
We need to know real.
And Obama does quote this Alinsky often, and Hillary did her thesis
Oh my God, I knew it's tied in there somewhere.
with
I did,
Alinsky,
yeah,
okay? And so, what it boils down to, it's almost done right now here in the United States.
yeah. Scary.
And just one more election decides it.
Oh yes.
And we got to, this is the election that will decide one way or the other.
Most important
Okay.
election.
And there's 8 levels of control that must be obtained before you are able to create a socialist communist state. No matter who it is, I mean, going back to Russia, that's
You
our
have to-
nearest term, but
There's
then we
these
go.
8 steps.
Yeah, they all had to have these 8 steps. And the first is the most important. 5 of the 8 are already done,
Oh, my goodness.
okay? And the last 3 are almost done. And the election
We'll make that decision.
will make that all 8, okay? Now, healthcare. Control healthcare and you control the people. That's done. Okay. Poverty. Increase the poverty level at the highest level possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if the government is providing everything for them to live.
Absolutely. That's done. Yeah.
Okay. Debt. Increase the national debt to an unsustainable level. That way you're able to increase taxes and this will produce more poverty. What is Hillary
Done. Yeah.
proposing?
Yeah.
Where's
Exactly.
our debt?
19.
Obama's doubled the debt since
Yeah, he's
been-
doubled it.
Yeah.
He's doubled it.
So this is all part of the plan, and this is the part that's done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now we go to gun control.
Oh, my goodness.
Remove the ability to defend themselves from government. That way you are able to create a police state and total local control. I know some of the feds are going into the police department right now. You know, there are several departments that the feds is taking over. Okay. All right. Welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives: food, livestock, housing, income. That's done.
That is definitely done.
I talked to a farmer just today at lunch, and he was telling me the regulations and that he's now having to adhere to. It's just
I
mind-boggling.
just hate that. My heart goes out to farmers. My dad was
My
a...
Lord, you know, you and I
Yes.
both raised on that.
Yeah.
Education. Take control of what people read and listen to. Okay? Take control of what children learn in school. Almost there. Now, you went and seen the movie, and you went to school. You graduated the same school I did, Fresno State.
Yeah.
How come when we walked out of that movie, said, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole bunch of them, too. It wasn't just
Yeah.
one, Gary.
Yeah,
There was
exactly.
a lot of them. you know.
Exactly. Religion, which you mentioned earlier. Remove faith in God from government and schools, and we're almost there. Okay? Class warfare. Divide the people into wealthy against the poor. This will cause more discontent, and it will be easier to tax the wealthy with full support of the voting poor. That's been done. Okay? Class
That
warfare.
is wonderful.
And-
Good stuff, Gary.
You know, and Obama, everybody that I remember at the time, I was never an Obama man at the beginning at all.
Me either. No.
But there was people that were, and they all thought of it as a unify. Well, we need that to kind of unify. He's a divider.
That's exactly what
I
he's
mean,
done.
he-
Let me tell you something. I mean, take race relationships. for-
Yeah.
They're worse than they've ever
Oh, absolutely.
been in this country, I think.
I do
Other
too.
than, I mean, beginning in 1900. Let me
Right.
say they're worse than they were when the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1965. They
Right.
are worse right,
Right. Isn't that something? And they're worse, not better.
now. How sad is that?
They had it.
He had a chance and he failed it. You know, and
Well, he didn't. You know, he had a chance, but he's seen it as the chance to go through the 8 steps we're talking about. He wasn't looking at it a chance what you were thinking, or I was thinking it was possible. That wasn't on his agenda.
Yeah.
And wasn't on. It's not on the Democratic Party
No,
agenda
at
or
all.
the globalist agenda.
at all. And I keep saying over and over again, Hillary is exactly like him in so many ways, and will do the same thing, if not worse.
Well, she's controlled by the exact same people.
Absolutely.
I mean, nothing changes there.
No.
Okay? So the bases are all covered, and we are right. We do not want to end up like Venezuela, and where the people are starving and do not even have the simplest of daily needs. Now think about Venezuela
sad
at
as
one
that.
time and today.
Very prosperous country.
Yeah. And think about where it is today. Now, the thing that also goes along with this is interesting, and And I read this, and this is the word they used. They said they cannot do, communists cannot become that way, or socialist, whatever, without the use of useful idiots.
They've got to have that. I can understand that.
They got to have that.
Yeah.
The problem with the useful idiot thing, they'll use useful idiots, and that's the only way they can become what they are, communists or socialists. Or
Yes.
But here's the thing. The useful idiots become the first to be liquidated. And when I read that, I said, well, wait a minute.
That sounds like Nazi Germany.
Well, I mean, it'll be in some shape or form.
Yeah,
Okay?
but
And then I started thinking, I said, well, wait a minute. They needed the useful idiots to gain power and control. They can't do it without them.
yes.
All right? Now that they have the power and control, obviously,
They don't need them.
but there's some common sense to why you wouldn't need them. Why would you, as one of those powers that become powerful, why would you want to be saddled with people that are on welfare, that are not doing anything,
Yes.
except they're taking from 100% from the government? Let's get rid of them, and now we can go on.
That makes sense, Gary.
So
It does, I gotta
I'm
say.
I get to thinking about that, and I think, well, I can understand. Let's say I'm getting this, and I'm getting that, and I'm getting this, and getting that. Man, I'm happy. I got to keep voting for those. And I get there, and all of a sudden, I'm a drag on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I better be careful, because they don't need me. So I become liquidated in some shape, manner, or
yeah.
form. It could be whatever it is, but I'll tell you one thing: it isn't. It's never better for them.
Of course not. How
Never.
sad is that? How sad is that?
That's the one thing it's true, is it's never better for them. And so I think people have to really, and you don't have to go into it like maybe you do or I do or anything, but you got to look at it and say, well, wait a minute, what am I really doing here? What am I mean, I'm not, let's face it, these people aren't idiots unless they want to make themselves idiots, but they are being pandered, and they are being used,
Absolutely, and have been for years.
and have been for years, and to the point it becomes a way of life. There's no incentive there.
It is a way of life. I mean, they've accepted. They've become stagnant almost.
Well, and there's no incentive for, they well think, well, there's no incentive for me, and we've talked about that, and they lose hope. They have no hope, and they're basically, like I mentioned before, it's just like they're what are their purpose? The only purpose they have is for those people to use them to get the power and control, so they can now have control over, take their guns away, take their spirit away,
I hope everybody
and take
will
their
wake up
motivation
and
away.
listen to this.
Take
Because this
everything
is
away.
what's happening right now. This is reality, okay? 88 days, ladies and gentlemen, till we make what could possibly be one of the most important decisions of our lives. I truly believe that.
Well, the American people are smart, and as a whole, and
I think they're starting to wake up.
well, they are waking up, and the media, which we understand the media, we sit there and kind of have had confidence in it to a point, or we listen to it and so forth. You got the major media, 97% voted for Obama. Now, they're supposed to be smart, but are they really part of the useless or useful idiots? Or they're being controlled, because they're owned, and they're putting out what they're being told to put out by Wall Street people who control the whole thing
Absolutely.
anyway.
I believe that totally.
And they're the globalists.
Sure.
And I like Trump's term he used the other day, globalism versus Americanism.
I like that too. I heard that.
You heard that? Yeah. And so the thing that you look at that and you look what they put out, the lies they put out, and I can understand why people maybe will not go and check and see what that
They
pundit
accept.
said.
I know they accept whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama said the economy is fine. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe he said that. He said we've created 15,000 jobs. You and I
Right.
talked about that. And you
Right.
explained that to the people about the 15,000 jobs.
Yeah.
But he actually stood that up and said that. You know, America has never been safer. Are you
Oh, my
kidding me? Tell that to the people in Orlando.
Well, I mean,
You know?
go to a Fresno State football game and kind of wonder about, geez, what if somebody decided?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I didn't even give that a thought last year. Did you?
No. Yeah, I got to tell you this now. I got to tell you, it just came to me. This morning, I'm sitting outside Starbucks, and I'm having a good time. By myself. I'm enjoying it. I'm reading I was actually reading the Wall Street Journal. I'm sitting there, and I'm
Yeah.
reading the paper, and all of a sudden, I started thinking, oh, my gosh, what if, a terrorist came in here? And I thought, well, my second thought was, oh, that's stupid. It's Fresno. And then I started thinking, well, San Bernardino wasn't that big either.
That's right. That's right.
You never know.
It can
Just
happen
It could
anywhere.
happen absolutely
So people,
anywhere.
You cannot feel as safe today as you did a year ago.
How sad is
know?
that? I've said before, there's an underlying fear that pervades all of us across mainstream America, and it does, because they don't know when it might happen.
And-
How sad is that?
And Hillary wants to increase 550%.
150%. Unbelievable.
How could she even say that
Yeah.
with things like
And
that?
plus the fact they've already made statements like, we will infiltrate. Of course
Yeah.
they will. They've made statements,
Well, they
open,
have to.
publicly stated
In
statements.
fact, that's what boy, you talk about hoping like heck that Hillary is the one that's elected. It's got to be ISIS
Oh, my goodness.
And
She was
then-
her and Obama were the very cause of it in the first place.
in the first place. There
In the
was
absolute
none before
first.
this.
No.
And
They
we-
created that vacuum, and what came out of that vacuum?
Right.
You know?
Well, then now we're getting the emails coming out, and you're going to find that in Libya, how Hillary was involved in that basically becoming an ISIS-controlled country.
Oh, my goodness.
You know.
And it goes on and on. I mean, there's Putin, and there's the uranium. I mean, it just goes, it never, ever stops. And I can't believe, I say it often, Gary, to people, I can't believe she has a following. I mean, I cannot believe that this woman has a following.
Well, let's
at
talk
all.
about that, because that is true. Because I hear that all the time, and I think about it myself. I say, how in the world can anybody possibly? And I'm thinking, man, I just don't get it. And then I look at the polls, and I'm thinking, what in the world's going on? Well, let me tell you. Those polls are put out by the...
Liberal left. yes. Okay.
So
yeah.
anyway, social media, and this was interesting because social media, there's about four main ones. There's Instagram, there's Twitter, and there's Facebook, and there's YouTube. Okay, where the people can put anything, right?
Sure
you
they
could
can.
write. We could all write. We could all put
Absolutely.
something,
You can
right?
put absolutely anything.
Well, now we're getting the truth. We're getting we're not getting it regurgitated out of the main. It's coming right from somebody's heart.
Absolutely.
I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, or what they are, but it's at least coming out of their heart. Okay, so you think about social media, and it's interesting, the people that own those major medias that I just made, they're all very liberal.
Oh, absolutely. I
Oh,
know that
really?
for a fact.
Okay?
Yeah.
So then, why is this? And I'm going to point this out. This shocked me. And the polls that the media puts out, those are taken, what, seems like every day or something.
Almost every, I hit it every day and say, what are the latest political
Yeah,
polls? I do
too.
it every morning.
Right. And they're interviewing about maybe, I don't know, 100 people. I've heard 100, I've heard whatever.
They're not very many.
No, they're not very many at all.
200
In
is
fact,
the
I'm
most,
always
wasn't
shocked. It's like it's less than 1,000.
it? Oh,
or
yes,
1,000.
a lot less.
And what they've done, and I read that, they just did this recently, right after the convention, they skewed it. So let's take a county like Fresno, and let's just say Fresno County was 60% Democrat and 40% Republican. So what they'll do is poll 60% of the Democrats
Oh, my
and poll
gosh.
40% of the Republicans, and now they come up with their data. Well, obviously,
It's not going to be the same.
It's not
per,
gonna- no.
Yeah, absolutely. I see it.
so what these guys did, there was 13 guys, and they were graduate school, and they'd get together and discuss things, and they decided to do their own poll. So they divided the country up in 13 ways, and each one was assigned an area, and they decided to poll 1,000 people in each state.
So that's, oh my goodness.
In each state. Okay, then they went to the state registrar and got the actual people that voted, not somebody walking down the street, hey, who are you going to vote for? They got the people that actually voted.
Very smart.
And
Oh
then
my
they
goodness.
took of that, they took 33% that were registered and had voted Democrat, 33% that was registered had voted Republican, and then 34% that had voted Independent. And now they polled them. And they called these people, and I forget how many weeks it took, but it took a while. And they compiled all the information. Now, obviously, they end up with 50,000 people that had voted. They were voters.
Yeah.
And then they divided up percentage-wise to where it was equal, not skewed.
Makes sense.
And they come up with the result. Okay, now we're talking about social media, populated primarily by younger people. Older people aren't computer, internet savvy that much. So you kind of think that, man, I don't know about that, how that's going to come out, right? It came out 67% Trump, 19% Clinton, and 13% undecided.
You sent me that. It was wonderful.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
So then you look at that, and then I looked at the other poll, which is like, what is it? Hillary's this many points, and Trump's this many points, and they say, man, I can't believe that. And then all of a sudden, this poll comes out. Well, I couldn't believe that either. And so but it does. I mean,
That's a poll. That's not
that's
a poll of
There are
400 people.
50,000
Yes.
people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the other side of that is that we're looking at the media poll, and these people did not have it skewed into 60% of this or 40% of that. It was straight up equal amount.
Oh, absolutely. I can see why they would do it. Mainly.
And so I don't know which one of those polls are right. So let's just say that, for instance, that, well, I just don't believe that 67%. Okay, but here, why don't we do this? Why don't we just believe our eyes for a minute and look at Trump's every single rally? He can't get a place big enough to put the people in it.
I know it.
And then they turn
Tens of
around
thousands.
and you look at a Hillary rally, and she's lucky to raise enough to fill an
500
8th grade
people.
member school.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That tells you something. That does.
I mean,
don't pay attention to the polls, ladies and gentlemen. Please.
I mean, I look at the poll and I say,
They-
well, how come it doesn't reflect reality?
No, and it doesn't.
So let's just say that our hope is right. That we feel pretty good about this idea that maybe these polls are way off, but that's what they want the public to think. Well,
Of course they do.
and if that's the case, it goes along with, and I'm seeing it, and you are too, that more and more Americans are waking up. And I've talked to people that a year ago that were anti-Trump. They're not anymore.
Me too. I have too. People are starting to wake up, doing, and I think it was you that said, I'm pretty sure it was you that said it, that you get so much more out of reading than watching what you're going to get off the media.
Yeah.
You need to read for yourself. The Dredge report reports you need to read for yourself and do your own personal due diligence. I think you'll come up with a very informed decision and make the right decision.
Well, and I think what you'll do is you want to restore your faith that maybe because if you've done some reading, you're going to know what we're talking about. What we read right here is in fact in place.
Yes.
And pretty far gone down the line. To tell you the truth.
Like you said, this election will make that decision.
That's it. And
That's pretty scary.
Yeah. And it's scary, but also it's quite a responsibility all of us Americans out here have.
We do. We really do. I've told everybody before, this is the most important election in my life.
Yeah.
By far. By far.
So I think that I kind of like I listen to Trump's speeches, and I listen to Hillary's speeches, and I don't know. I kind of think that there's enough of it that it's changing and people are waking up.
And in lieu of all this new information, and of course we thought that about the emails too.
Right,
They're
right.
just an awful powerful
Right.
people. But with what's going on with the Clinton Foundation, we all hope. We're just hoping.
Yeah.
that justice is served with this.
Well, you know, you read this and you got to take all with a grain of salt. But what was interesting with North Carolina, which North Carolina is a huge block of black voters in North Carolina. I mean, that's a big, and it's a very important state because of the demographics. And I think, I don't hold me to this entirely, but I think that all that Romney got out of that
He
state.
got like 12% or 6%.
Something like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that?
Mhm.
Well, the recent poll, there again, but a recent poll now has 32% Trump.
Are you kidding?
That's what I read out of this.
That is
poll.
extremely high.
Well, and then you look and see.
I didn't know that. That's a plus.
I go to a couple of websites. Well, one of them is, I've told you before about, is Diamond and Silk.
Yes, Diamond
And then
Silk.
that goes on, you know. And I'm starting to think that, my gosh, people are waking up because, of course, it's easier for you, obviously, but the point is, man, isn't that a plantation mentality that we're getting from,
Well, of course it is.
for everybody? But
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
man,
absolutely.
especially if, I'll tell you what, especially after what my ancestors had gone through with slavery and all they had to suffer and they did through all these years and the inroad, and now we're going to go backwards?
Yeah. It is sad. It is sad. And you're right. You're absolutely right. We have been traveling backwards.
Yeah.
I hope everybody understands the importance, the real importance of this. I hope we give you enough information, and we will continue. That's our goal. We want to give you as much as we can so that you can do your own due diligence and make a determined effort at putting this country back. Get behind Donald Trump. I've just got to say it. I think once you read enough and hear enough, you'll make that. We see this. I see this awakening happening.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, too, with that, because you'll run into that. I just cannot stand what Trump said, or they'll get on. Of course, the media's going to build that up, but let's just say that. And I said, well, okay, let's just go along with that. I said, you dislike, I just can't see myself.
I hear it all the time.
I can't see myself voting for Trump. And I said, well, why would you let something temporary affect something that's going to be permanent?
There you go, Gary. There you go. Absolutely.
I mean, I sit there, Ray, and we come walking out there, and you did something or said something, and I got mad. That's temporary. But why am I going to let that permanently destroy a friendship?
You're not.
You're not.
No.
Well, it is.
But
It's the same thing as
Yes.
far as when you look at what the options are. Wall Street, Main Street.
Main Street.
What are you? Main Street.
Absolutely.
And
I want the American people, and I think they're starting to see a little hope.
I think so.
And I think the more hope is a great thing.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, we're gonna take a little break here, Gary, and we'll be back in say 2 and 2. Okay, I'm back. I need to tell you that if you're watching this right now, we're live. Okay, if you watch it later, it'll be a rebroadcast. So I just want you to know that we are live right here, and I'm back with Gary Clemente, and we're having a good old discussion today, about the state of affairs of this great country.
Well, it's one thing to point out what the issues are and the problems, and people can see that. But then what are the solutions, and what are the solutions personally? And I don't care if you're on welfare right now or what you'd like, or just trying.
You'd like to have a better life.
Yeah, you'd like to have something and that you could look forward to, and be independent, and be free. And this is something that is taken away by us almost daily, is a little bit of freedom.
Absolutely.
And that starts with a number of things, such as the freebies and the gun control and all the rest. But I think that in our school system, we do not teach personal financial responsibility. And one of the things that I thought about, one of the first things they did, which at the time, and even today, it's a good deal, but think about it, Ray. I think you remember a time when there was no credit cards.
Oh, absolutely, I do.
Okay. And I didn't know what a credit card is. In fact, what people did is they went and they waited and saved and then bought what they were going to do.
Most people paid cash, and
and they
my
paid
dad,
cash for it, or they wouldn't buy it until they could pay for it.
Absolutely.
I remember getting a Sears and Roebuck catalog and looking in there and seeing something I wanted,
I did the same thing.
and you did the same thing. But you didn't just say, "Oh, Mom, get me this," and we'll put it on this credit card. No, you waited till you saved up money. You said, "Mom, I got the money to do it."
Absolutely. My first glove, my first
Yeah,
baseball
there
glove
you go.
came out of Montgomery Ward.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, if you had a credit card, you could have had it right now.
absolutely.
But because you had to save for it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that instilled in you the value of that. Plus, you didn't go in debt. You see,
Very well.
you know, and I tell you what you end up with is, you know, if you buy on a credit card, that's a promise. Promise I'm going to pay for it. I'm going to pay it down the road. Because a promise made is a debt unpaid,
Absolutely.
you see. So if you look at it that way and say, well, wait a minute, I'm going to use my credit card, but I'm only going to use it for convenience. So if I want something, back to that mentality with the catalog, I'm not gonna buy it. I mean, there's a couch I need to replace, or I think I need to replace, or I want to replace. Well, I can get it right now with this credit. Well, we can get it right now. We'll deliver it this afternoon. No, I'm going to wait until I can pay for the couch, put it on the card that have the card paid for, so I don't have a debt. Okay, but now I have the couch. Well, when did I get the couch? When I could afford the couch. And if you put it on the credit card, now you've got a cost and
Yeah.
you've got a debt.
You've got a debt.
And you become debt free. I've got a neighbor across the street. Believe me, man, he had cards maxed out. It was incredible.
Well, I've heard of them. I've
And
seen it.
he went on this, and he went on the idea. He says, I'm going to become credit card free. And I said, no. I said, why don't you just use it for convenience? He was going to burn his cards, you know. And I said, no, just for convenience. And it took him a year and a half, 18 months, and he became, he couldn't believe it, how fast that had happened for
That's
him.
absolutely wonderful.
And he was up to his eyeballs in debt. Okay, now he had built that, and he stayed on the same discipline that he had developed, not buying unless I could pay for it, because you'll find out a little bit later, a lot of the things you want,
you really didn't want in the first place.
you didn't want it in the
I've
first
heard
place.
that. Mhm.
And if
And
you
I've
have
had
to
that.
pay the price, you definitely realize you don't want it.
Absolutely.
So if I'm sitting there wanting this, and I'm saved for it, and I'm saying, wait a minute, that's too big a price I'm paying, so I don't really want it.
Yeah.
You see? And so anyway, I was proud of him because now he's debt-free, and he built he built $6,000 in the bank, first time he ever had that much money in his life, in a very short period of
Outstanding.
time. So that gives hope to anyone
Sure it does.
if you have a program or you're in a program which you're going to be rewarded with that, and one of the rewards is no payroll tax. So
That's a great reward in itself.
so you're going to have more money, and now if you just take and apply a little discipline to it, you'd be surprised how fast you'll be financially free, and that's a big one.
You're doggone right it is. Very big.
You know, and so that gives hope to that kind of a. That
And that's
kind
what
of
we
a-
need. You're right,
Yeah,
Gary.
you
That's
know,
exactly what we need.
It's
Some
a
type of
simple.
hope.
It's a simple thing, but it's things that people can do if they have the freedom to do it,
Yes.
and they create their own freedom. And if the government leaves them alone to the point that they get to keep what they make, I think people will find they'll be self-sufficient very quickly.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful solution.
know,
That's one solution.
That's one solution. And then you start to apply that to everything you're doing in life. You start saying, well, wait, what happens to your self-esteem? Man, I don't have any debt. But and you've seen this. You had friends say this before. They'll say, well, that's one thing I don't do. I don't owe anything to my credit card. They're proud of it.
Oh, yes.
Now you build up self-esteem, and now you become a contributor.
There's so much pride in that.
Yeah, and you develop some pride and so forth. Yeah. So I think that's one area where you say, well, what can I do? I'm sitting here on welfare. That don't mean you got to be on welfare all your life.
No,
Not out
it
loud.
doesn't. It most certainly does. There's lots of things that
Right.
you can do.
Well,
But
I
you've
go out
gotta-
and get a
you've
job.
got- Yeah.
I can't get a job. Well, if I get a job, I'm better off on welfare. Well, come on. That right there is telling you if you're better off welfare, it means somebody's controlling you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know,
So
you bought the hype.
I think that you bought the hype, and then pretty soon you become dependent on the hype, and pretty soon you're back on the plantation, and we don't see it so much here, although.
Do you realize that
man.
the people, the welfare recipients, the people on aid, has tripled under this administration?
Tripled.
Almost tripled, like
Yeah.
2 point. It's very close to triple.
Well, listen, look at the ghettos, the projects, and you go there today. What about that looks any different than it did 10 years ago?
I know an area that here in Fresno locally, they went in and they rebuilt it about 3 years ago. It looks exactly almost identical to what it looked 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, there's no pride in ownership.
None. None.
You know, you don't become conservative until you have something to conserve. Now, think about this: home ownership. We just seen that real estate lady on there. Home ownership is a key. Wouldn't it be great if everybody could own their own home?
No, certainly it would.
Because now they have something,
Mhm.
and now they have something to conserve.
And I read this today. I'm glad you brought that up. That home ownership in this country has not been as low as it is today under this administration for 41 years, dating back to 1975.
Is that right?
Dating back to 1975. Unbelievable.
Well, I think that what is it? Actual money that people are earning is less. What it's been 18 years or something like that.
Yeah, I saw a figure on that. I can't remember what it was. I don't want to be wrong about that, but I did see. I wish I could remember what it was. But there's just so many
In
things.
fact, it was back to 70s.
Yeah.
Since 1949, there hasn't the country's growth hasn't been what it is today. Since
That I read
Yeah.
yesterday. Yeah, that I just read yesterday. That is in 1949.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Some of the-
65 years ago, or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
60.
It's
8 years ago.
Supposedly growing at a rate of about 1.2. I've read the other day where China, they feared it going down to only 7, and it's a catastrophe for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we're down to 1.2 GDP.
Unbelievable.
And the thing is, where do you think this money is going to come from?
The money's not there.
It's not there.
You know, and how in the world can our chief executive officer stand up and say that the economy is fine? You know, the economy is better than it's been in years.
Well-
you know, I mean,
I think the guy is just like Hillary. I think they're totally owned.
sure they are.
They're just
That's special
convenient
interests, you know.
puppets. I've said this before.
Sure.
If you're one of those globalists, Wall Street billionaires, what better candidate than Hillary Clinton? Because she's a liar, she's corrupt, and she's crooked. I mean, man, that's what we need. And
Makes
no
sense.
conscience. So she is the ideal candidate for our side.
People have to realize that a vote for Hillary Clinton is a vote for Obama all over again,
Well, of
and
course.
very possibly worse. And I think that's what a lot of people need to wake up
Well,
and see.
Obama was
Yeah.
handpicked way back when.
Sure he was.
And he's been totally owned ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that was really interesting that I just read about, Bernie Sanders, big following, right?
Mm-hmm.
Socialist. I mean, he had no clue in the world of where in the world he's going to get. He would be Venezuela in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely.
In fact, I think we.
Free college?
Oh, I mean
come on,
everything.
please.
I mean,
who's going to pay for this?
I mean, this thing would be over in a heartbeat.
Right now.
But yeah, I noticed something kind of interesting. Most candidates that run for office, even right here in the county, run for this, and if you were backing that candidate and you say he didn't win, then you most likely you get something in the mail that says, well, would you donate a little bit because we ended up owning a little bit.
Mhm.
They all do, right?
Sure they do.
All right.
Sure they
I
do.
mean, they always overspend, and
Mhm.
then they go back and say, well, we got to pay the guy that built our signs and
Mm-hmm.
all this. Okay. In fact, presidential candidates, same thing. They'll come back and say, well, you know, the campaign owes so much money, we need a little more donation. And I've seen it over the years, all right? I don't
Absolutely.
care, Congress or whatever. Now, I want you to add this one up.
Oh, it's going to be good. I know it is.
Bernie Sanders lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? Bernie Sanders, within a week, bought a $600,000 home in New England.
Why am I not surprised at that?
Now,
See, I didn't know that.
Well, when did that happen? Right after he endorsed Hillary Clinton. Anybody else would be sending out, I figured, well, old Sanders is going to be sending out stuff for people to.
He didn't have to, did he? He endorsed Hillary Clinton. That was enough.
And he gets within a
Wake
week, he's got a
up,
$600,000
America.
vacation home in New England. And the guy's he didn't even never drew a paycheck till he was 40 years old. What has he ever done?
$600,000 house.
Ray, he bought that house within a week after he endorsed Hillary Clinton.
Why am I not surprised, ladies and gentlemen?
Boy, and he's as quiet as a church
Oh, you
mouse.
don't hear from him now.
Oh, yeah.
He's kicked back in his new home.
But you're right. We need to get the word out to everybody and just keep. Well, the word is out. I mean, they just need to start listening. And,
Yeah, and that's why you and I,
Yeah.
and we tell them over and over and
Sure.
over again.
Yeah,
And,
and
and Gary sends me some information that is just incredible. I read everything that he sends to me, and that keeps me informed. And then he and I meet and we talk about it. And you really have to do some reading on your own. You really have to do your own due diligence. We can give you only so much, but you need to do that.
well, it gives you. It does two things. It, of course, awakens, but it also gives you hope.
Yes, it does.
And then when you look at, for instance, you'll notice that the media here not too long ago come out. Well, Trump needs to do this. Trump needs to do that. He needs to shut his mouth and go on. They kept. And I said, well, wait a minute. Why is the media saying that? Why do they want to help Trump and give him advice that would help him?
And they've been against him all this time.
Right. All of a sudden now
yeah.
if he'll just shut up, boy, that was on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you say, they asked Trump, because he's ahead of the game. He said, "There's not." In fact, he just said today, he says, "No." He says, "I defeated 16 guys. They're all sharp people and all that." He says, "I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing."
Absolutely, it's been working so far. And I said that too.
Sure.
When I heard that, I thought, yeah, just tone it down until
Yeah.
November, you know.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, and then you made me come to this quick conclusion right now because you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is.
You got to ask, well, why are they telling Trump this?
Yeah, after all this time of being against him,
Yeah.
all the time, trying to thwart him at every turn,
At
every single turn.
It kind of reminded me of that. We talked about that Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox and,
Yeah.
and Brer Bear. Mm-hmm. Well, they're about to cook that rabbit. They're about to cook. And he kept pleading. He said, boy,
Whatever you do.
whatever you do, don't throw me in that briar patch. And that's kind of what the
outsmarted
media
them.
was baiting. the
Absolutely.
people. They're just baiting, saying, boy, you got to shut up. Yeah, shut up.
Uh-huh.
So you don't hear what needs to be heard.
It's got him to exactly the way where he's at right now.
Well, I mean,
Like you
and
said,
then
and-
if we don't like, you're not going to like everything, and obviously, at the same time, you got to look at it. And I get back to this
I
again.
know
Why
exactly.
am I going to let something temporary,
Yes, something very temporary.
very temporary?
You know, look at the bigger picture. And
Yeah.
that's what I think that you really have to do, folks. You really have to look at the bigger picture. Look at the
That's
end
it.
results of what's going to happen in November. Take a good look at that. Take a good look at who do you want to lead this country. Who do you want to bring back the middle class and build up prosperity in this country? Who do you think can do that the best? Do your reading, and I think you'll find out.
Well, there's two clear choices. I mean, they may say, well, I don't like either candidate. That's fine, but there's what they're going to do is black and white. It's that big a difference.
Absolutely.
So you
You're
do
right,
have
Gary.
a choice, and you have two choices, and you just got to make a wise decision. And it's not anything more than just using common sense and making the wise
The
decision.
wise decision. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think people, like we've said, I think a couple of times already here this afternoon, that I think people are starting to wise up. They're starting to see things. Maybe they're reading more. I don't know. Maybe that something's just resonating with them.
Well,
And
you know,
you can't. I mean, how many negatives can you hear about a person,
Right.
and it doesn't resonate with you somewhere? And I
You
think
know,
maybe that's starting to happen.
And we talked about that before. How in the world do you possibly, in all good conscience, how in the world do you vote for somebody that's been proven that's lied to Congress, lied to the FBI, and is a proven lies on lies?
She lied about lying to the FBI.
Why would she not lie when she's president? Is all of a sudden she's going to stop lying? to the American people, lied to the American people, parents that's lost children.
Oh, my goodness.
How do you do something like that? How do you sit there and lie to parents like that? Is she going to stop?
Of course
Why?
she's not.
Of course not.
Of course she is not.
Corrupt and crooked. They're into that foundation. My Lord, if that we went over last time how that foundation was set up and what it really is. It's
Absolutely.
just to enrich Hillary Clinton.
I think you and I came up with, and we each read that it was less than 7% actually the money is used for what
Yeah.
it should be used for. The rest goes you know where.
Right. And how they were able to circumvent the legality of the donor disclosures and
Yes.
so forth, you know. No, it's one of, well, in fact, you saw that in the movie. They mentioned that.
Yes.
It could be the largest single biggest money laundering crime in the history of the United States.
I believe that it is.
You
I
know.
mean, we have no
'Cause it goes
idea.
on. That's right.
I mean, we're talking about foreign money,
That's-
major foreign oil
Exactly.
money.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
my goodness, it could.
Right.
We're talking about out into infinity somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to take a break,
Yep.
and we'll be back in about 2 and 2. Okay, I'm back with my good buddy Gary, and as you saw, he always brings something that is. And I think some of the things Gary said were outstanding today. They give us a little hope, and like you said, Gary, that's what we need.
Yeah, because we need, how does this relate, can this relate to me personally?
Absolutely.
And man, you start that little bit of saying, maybe it's only $2, $5, but this is what I want, and you start doing that and not using your card, your self-esteem will go up.
Beautiful.
And I'm
Just
telling you, the
beautiful.
people up in, I got a couple friends up there out of, I call it Igloo Network, Lois and AJ, they put the word out into the bush. There's 100,000 Eskimos up
Oh,
there.
I love it. I love it.
and they're getting the good word. So.
Good. We're moving along. Well, Gary, I want to put you on the spot again and say thank you so much again,
appreciate
once again. And you're coming back, right?
Yes, sir. I'll
Good.
come back.
Good.
Sure.
You heard it from him himself. We're going to hold him to that. Now, as I do every week, I like to close with a little something to think about, and I think it's going to stay on my show because it's very important to me that when you see a law enforcement officer out there, okay, go up and shake his hand and tell him what a great job. I did it this morning to 2 people, but do that as often as we can. Let's let them know how much we appreciate them. You know, they are there to protect us, and I honor them. I really do. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't want to do what they do. And so let's go out and let's let them know how much they mean to us. So until we joyously meet again on next Thursday at 4 p.m., heaven's blessings.
CentralValleyTalk.com